Ford nearly replaced the Mustang with a front-wheel drive coupe built from Mazda engineering. No traditional rear-wheel drive layout, no guaranteed V8 identity, and no classic pony car formula. This was not a sketch from some distant design studio. Inside Ford, it became a serious plan for the next Mustang, driven by fuel economy pressure, changing buyer tastes, and the fear that the old muscle car image was running out of road. The question is not whether fans would be angry. They were. The real question is why Ford got close enough for that anger to matter. By the early 1980s, the Mustang was still alive, but the world around it had moved faster than the car itself. The Fox-body Mustang had loyal fans because it kept the basic American performance formula intact. Front engine, rear-wheel drive, available V8 power, and a price ordinary buyers could reach. For enthusiasts, that made it one of the few remaining links to the muscle car era. For Ford planners, it also made the car harder to defend. The oil shocks of the 1970s had changed what buyers expected from a daily driver. Fuel economy was no longer a side benefit. It was a selling point, a regulatory target, and a corporate survival issue. Smaller imports were gaining ground because they were efficient, modern, and easy to live with in traffic. Emissions rules added another layer of pressure. The old performance playbook was not as simple as dropping in a bigger engine and advertising horsepower. Engineers had to balance power with cleaner exhaust, better mileage, and tighter federal standards. Every new Mustang proposal had to answer questions that the original 1964 car never faced. Ford also had business problems to solve. Developing a unique rear-wheel drive Mustang cost money, and the company was looking for ways to share parts, platforms, and engineering across more vehicles. A global front-wheel drive architecture looked attractive because it could spread costs over multiple markets and models. Inside that environment, the Mustang's heritage was not automatically a strength. To the people reading budgets and fuel economy forecasts, its past could look like weight the company was dragging behind it. Ford already had a possible answer sitting inside its partnership with Mazda. By the early 1980s, Ford owned a major stake in Mazda, and the two companies were working more closely than ever. Mazda brought small car engineering experience that Ford wanted badly: compact drivetrains, efficient layouts, and platforms designed for the new reality of higher fuel prices and tougher competition. One of the most important pieces was the engineering package tied to the Mazda 626. It was front-wheel drive, modern, space-efficient, and already proven in a family car that felt more contemporary than many older American designs. To Ford planners, that made it more than just a Mazda sedan underneath. It looked like a shortcut to the future. A front-wheel drive layout could free up interior room because there was no driveshaft tunnel running to the rear axle. It could help fuel economy because the car could be lighter and packaged around smaller engines. It could also reduce development costs because Ford would not have to create an all-new Mustang platform from scratch. That mattered inside a company trying to globalize its products. If Ford could share major components with Mazda, it could spread engineering costs across more cars and more markets. A sporty coupe based on Mazda bones could be sold as efficient, modern, and affordable without the expense of preserving every old Mustang ingredient. On paper, the logic was clean. The next Mustang could become a sleek front-wheel drive coupe with Japanese-influenced engineering and Ford styling on top. But Mustang buyers were not asking for a better packaged compact car. They cared about rear-wheel drive, long hoods, simple power, and the feeling that the car still belonged to the same bloodline. What looked sensible in a planning meeting was starting to drift away from the reasons people wanted a Mustang in the first place. The car Ford was considering was not a Mustang with a new body. It was a different kind of product wearing the most valuable performance name Ford had. The proposed replacement was smaller, lower, and more aerodynamic than the Fox-body Mustang. Its proportions leaned toward a sleek sport coupe rather than a traditional pony car. Instead of building the car around a rear axle, a transmission tunnel, and the familiar front-engine rear-drive layout, Ford was looking at Mazda-based hardware that placed the driven wheels at the front. That changed everything under the skin. A front-wheel drive platform packages the engine, transmission, steering, and drive components in the nose of the car. That works well for compact cars, but it leaves less room for the kind of powertrain that had helped define the Mustang for decades. A traditional V8 was not just another engine option. It was part of the Mustang's public image. Even buyers who chose smaller engines understood that the car existed in the same family as the 5.0-liter cars, the street racers, and the weekend drag strip machines. A Mazda-derived front-drive coupe pointed towards smaller four-cylinder engines, possible turbocharging, and efficiency as the main engineering priorities. That formula could still produce a quick car. It could be lighter, sharper, and more modern in everyday driving, but it would deliver performance in a very different way. Instead of rear tires pushing the car forward, the front tires would have to handle acceleration, steering, and much of the braking load at the same time. The Mustang's identity had always been built from a simple recipe: a long hood, rear-wheel drive, affordable speed, and the promise that a V8 version sat somewhere in the lineup. The proposed car challenged each part of that recipe. Its hood did not need to be long, its platform was not rear drive, and its engine bay was not designed around the old muscle car hierarchy, so the risk was larger than a controversial redesign. Ford was not just changing the Mustang's shape, it was deciding whether the name Mustang could survive after being redefined as a compact, front-wheel drive sport coupe. Inside Ford, this became a fight over what the Mustang name was supposed to protect. One side saw the market changing fast. Front-wheel drive cars were selling in huge numbers, fuel economy mattered, and Ford had access to Mazda engineering that could save money and speed up development. From that perspective, a modern sport coupe with the Mustang badge looked like a practical answer to a difficult business problem. It could bring younger buyers into showrooms, meet new efficiency expectations, and keep the name alive in a segment that was moving away from old muscle car habits. But other voices inside Ford reportedly saw a different danger. They were not just worried that traditional buyers would dislike the car. They feared Ford would break the trust that made those buyers care in the first place. Mustang customers had accepted changes before, including smaller engines, new bodies, and different levels of performance. But a front-wheel drive replacement with no clear path for a proper V8 was a much deeper break. That layout threatened the promise behind the badge. The Mustang did not need to be the fastest car on sale to keep its credibility. It needed to feel like a platform that could still become something serious. A rear-drive chassis gave owners that belief, because it connected the base car to the performance versions, the aftermarket, and the racing image around the name. A Mazda-based front-drive coupe made that connection harder to defend. Even if it handled well, even if it was efficient, and even if it was quick for its class, it risked turning the Mustang into a badge applied to a completely different kind of car. For a while, this argument could have remained an internal Ford debate, buried in product meetings and design reviews. Then word began to escape the company, and the people Ford was most afraid of alienating finally got a chance to respond. In 1987, the Mustang replacement story broke into public view. Automotive magazines began reporting that Ford was preparing a radically different car for the next generation. The details were enough to set off alarms immediately. A front-wheel drive coupe tied closely to Mazda engineering, possibly carrying the Mustang name into the 1990s. For people outside Ford, this was no longer a rumor about future product planning. It sounded like the end of the Mustang as they understood it. The reaction came fast. Mustang owners wrote letters to Ford. Enthusiast clubs spread the news through newsletters, meetings, and word of mouth. Automotive writers questioned whether Ford understood the value of the badge it was about to move. The criticism was not polite market research feedback. It was a direct warning from the people who had kept the car alive through every weak sales year, every emissions-era disappointment, and every watered-down performance package. What made the backlash powerful was its focus. Enthusiasts were not demanding that Ford freeze the Mustang in the past. Many of them had already accepted fuel injection, smaller bodies, changing styling, and new technology. Their complaint was that this proposed car removed the mechanical foundation that made a Mustang feel like a Mustang. Rear-wheel drive, a long hood, available V8 power, and the possibility of modification were not minor details to them. They were the basic language of the car. That message mattered because it came from buyers who acted like caretakers, not casual customers. They restored old Mustangs, raced them, customized them, organized shows around them, and taught younger fans why the name meant something. To Ford, the Mustang had sometimes looked like a difficult business case. To its owners, it was a shared identity. The leak forced that difference into the open. Ford was not just being criticized for building the wrong coupe, it was being told that the company did not fully own the meaning of its own badge anymore. By the time the letters and press coverage piled up, Ford had learned something no spreadsheet could show clearly. The Mustang was not only a product line, it was a community, and that community expected to be heard. Ford's answer was not to cancel the new coupe outright. It was to stop treating it as the next Mustang. Inside the company, the front-wheel drive program still made sense on paper. Ford wanted a modern sport coupe with better aerodynamics, better fuel economy, and shared engineering with Mazda. That kind of car fit the late 1980s market, where Japanese automakers were gaining ground and buyers were paying attention to efficiency, quality, and packaging. The project had business logic behind it. The problem was the badge, so Ford split the plan in two. The Mustang would stay a rear-wheel drive car, keeping the basic layout that owners associated with the name. time. It would continue on the Fox platform with familiar proportions and available V8 power instead of being replaced by the Mazda-based coupe. That decision bought Ford time, and it kept the Mustang connected to the audience that had pushed back so hard. The other car did not disappear. Ford moved it into its own identity and prepared it for showrooms as the Ford Probe. That name had already been used on aerodynamic concept cars, so it fit the image Ford wanted: technical, futuristic, and separate from the company's muscle car history. When the Probe arrived for 1989, it carried much of the thinking that had started the controversy. It was front-wheel drive. It was developed with Mazda. It had a sleek shape, a modern cabin, and a different idea of performance than the Mustang. It was not trying to be a traditional pony car anymore. That became the strange resolution to the whole fight. Ford did build the car that nearly replaced the Mustang. It simply gave it another name, while the Mustang survived by remaining recognizably itself. In showrooms, the Ford Probe was not a rejected idea limping onto dealer lots. For 1989, it arrived as a sharp, contemporary sport coupe with real engineering behind it. The car shared roots with Mazda's GD platform, and its mechanical character reflected that partnership. Front-wheel drive, tidy packaging, precise road manners, and engines aimed more at balance than old-school brute force. Buyers noticed. Early sales were strong, and the Probe earned positive attention from the press. The turbocharged Probe GT, in particular, gave Ford a credible import-style performance coupe at a time when cars like the Toyota Celica, Honda Prelude, and Mazda MX-6 were shaping the segment. It looked aerodynamic, felt modern, and gave Ford something different from the aging Fox-body Mustang. That was also the limit of what it could be. The Probe did not carry the Mustang's long hood, short deck proportions. It did not send power to the rear wheels. It did not offer the same connection to drag strips, V8 tuning, or the image buyers had built around the Mustang since the 1960s. Competence could make the Probe desirable, but it could not make it symbolic. That is why the Probe matters so much to this story. It was not a disaster that proved Ford had been foolish. It was a perfectly valid car that revealed how different the Mustang's role had become. The alternate future did reach production. It was parked in plain sight, wearing a different name. Ford's business case was not irrational. It followed fuel prices, import competition, and changing buyers. But the Mustang survived because owners fought for more than a badge. They fought for a shared identity. Thanks for watching. Tell us in the comments if Ford made the right call, and subscribe to Forgotten Detroit for more prototypes, corporate battles, and alternate futures of American automotive history.